Welcome to r/nuclear revenge, where we have some good old-fashioned felony arson. Our next Reddit post is from Odin the American. My crazy, antisocial, elderly aunt lives in the mountains of West Virginia. My aunt is a mean, bitter old woman who was suspected of shooting and killing her ex-husband, but the cops could never pin it on her. Years ago, she bought a small home on some land that borders the land of another family in a small, narrow, isolated, forested mountain valley. The other family had been living there a long time, and they just wanted to be left alone, like most people who chose to live in a remote mountain location in West Virginia. My aunt bought chickens and started to let them run around, unfenced on her property, and the neighbors' dogs were very interested in those chickens. The chickens would roam around and go over to the neighbor's property. One day, without warning, my grandma killed her neighbor's dog for killing one of her chickens, and only one of the dogs was killed on her property. The other one was shot dead in the neighbor's front yard. The neighbors had small kids and they loved those dogs. My aunt walked over with a shotgun and told the neighbors that they had better never get another chicken-killing dog again, or else she would kill them too. The neighbors didn't take too kindly to her killing their dogs, or her actions with the shotgun. Waving it around and threatening them was over the top. But they didn't call the cops, knowing that my crazy aunt, who had a reputation for being violent, was unlikely to be arrested. And if she was arrested, she would just quickly be released from jail and be back. So a couple of weeks later, when my aunt went into town, her home's back window was broken, and a bottle of burning oil and gas was thrown into her home. By the time the fire department finally arrived, the home was a complete loss, and every shotgun and firearm my aunt owned, along with all her other worldly possessions, were incinerated. The home was a total loss, along with the chicken coop. The neighbors didn't see nothing, and the sheriff's department couldn't prove anything. My aunt had a long list of enemies. She didn't work, so she was too poor and lazy to have homeowner's insurance. So she had to move, and her son eventually bought her a cheap, run-down trailer in town. Those of us who knew my aunt figured she got what she deserved. Moral of the story, don't screw with a mountain man's dog. Honestly, she's lucky she wasn't inside the house when it caught fire. Our next Reddit post is from Ancient Educator. Some time ago, I married my high school sweetheart, Betty. I had just graduated high school and she was in high school, pregnant with our first child, Frankie, when she was 18 or 19. Throughout her pregnancy and our dating, I was informed of Betty's condition, epilepsy. She had infrequent seizures, and I've seen her have a grand mal seizure twice before the incident. Once while eating, and once on a family hike. The light flickering through the trees triggered it, we think. So later down the road, we have our second child living on our own in a trailer park. My wife has always been a little bit punk, dyeing her hair many times over and over, and now having to shave her head as a result of her extremely damaged hair. She dyed what was left of her hair pink. She was a belly dancer, had a style of her own, and really had a "don't F with me" vibe that she gave off to anybody but me and our two boys, Frankie and Sam. These aren't just nostalgic details, they're important to this slowly increasing plot. That being said, one afternoon, while Betty was getting ready to drop off the boys at Grandma's to hit the mall, she had another seizure, a bad one. It's hard to be too descriptive without choking up right now, but she knew that it was coming the second before. She hits the ground. I do my part to put her on her side and sweep the mouth. I know this is frowned upon now for some reason, but it's what our parents trained me to do. I call an ambulance, telling them, "Help, my wife is having a grand mal seizure, a bad one," while trying to instruct my frightened 3-year-old to go to mommy's bedroom. Sammy was hardcore napping at 11 months old, literally inches away. The ambulance shows up and takes her. I stay back because Grandma isn't there yet for the kids. Grandma gets there and I drive to the hospital as fast as possible. I get there pretty quick and talk to the doctor within a few minutes. The ER physician, Dr. Thoreau, whose mercy I was at, told me, "We're going to put her under to do a CAT scan / MRI / something having nothing to do with her epilepsy." In my naivete, not understanding that I can tell him what I want him to do, I just said, okay. I did tell him, however, that she had a seizure, and she had seizures in the past. The doctor did not believe that this seizure was epileptic in nature. He asked me about drugs she's taken, alcohol, etc. I told him, no, she doesn't do that. But she did have one drink a couple of nights ago. He was super convinced, based on her appearance, I presume, that this was because of drugs, and that she just needed to get it out of her system. Toxicology comes back. No drugs in her system. Dr. Thoreau says, this doesn't test for all drugs out there. Wow, doc. So she's put under now and kept in that state. In the meanwhile, no EEG machine, which measures brainwaves, to determine that, yeah, she's having a seizure, you moron. So give her phenobarb or whatever. I didn't understand the importance of all this at the time, so we were just waiting around for tests and for her to come out of it. This takes a day and a half. They finally bring out an EEG machine with an EEG tech, and came to find out I was right. All along, she was having seizures this entire time, and now she's brain dead. Now I'm signing DNRs. She died days later. Then 9/11 happened, which was not only 5 days after what would have been my wife's 23rd birthday, but exactly my 25th birthday. Let's just say it was a rough year. My father-in-law tries to go to one of those law tigers with the case, but they say it needs to come from the husband. At first, I don't want to go through this process, despite knowing that the doctor's arrogance caused my wife's demise. I eventually lawyer up, get referred to a great attorney on contingency, and begin the lawsuit process. Revenge is starting. EEG techs, hospitals, various entities involved in Betty's care, all separately settled out of court for unspecific amounts. Well, specified to me, obviously. This is just the beginning of the revenge. Of all the entities that bowed out of the fight and handed over a check, this arrogant doc wasn't having it. He wanted a trial. He really wanted me to have to relive the pain I'd been going through for the past couple of years just to protect the doctor's name. So we take it to court. Revenge by jury. 7-2 in favor of the plaintiff. Dr. Thoreau fell below the standard of care. Judgment for such and such $1 million. Goodbye, money. Civil suit done, enter fallout in the medical community. The ultimate revenge is that the doctor had his license suspended for a time and didn't practice medicine for a long time. Then the doctor tried their hand at different types of professions. Dr. Thoreau was unemployable in the medical field. To this day, the doctor was broker than I ever was. Man, imagine going brain dead just because you have pink hair and the doctor you just happen to get has a chip on his shoulder over people with pink hair. What an awful, preventable way to die. Our next Reddit post is from Wildling Lover. I'm a practicing internal medicine physician and formerly a 50% owner in what was once a fairly successful med spa with 4 locations. At least until what happened below. Before anyone accuses me of breaking the law, blah blah blah, don't. This has been litigated, resolved, and I won. But it's a fun story. In the beginning, my business partner and I were mere acquaintances working with a large hospitalist practice. Looking for extra income to pay off student loans, we decided to band together and open a med spa offering Botox, minor cosmetic procedures, B12 infusions, etc. And it was a huge hit. Big enough for us to go full time and expand. This lasted around 7 years. The beginning of the problem was my business partner decides that his wife isn't good enough for him and begins to step out on her. Now, this is none of my business. However, it does become my business when you embezzle money to pay for your sugar baby gifts from our business account. Fast forward a few years, and I've sat on this information because business overall was too good to walk away from it. However, COVID changed things and we had to close 2 of our 4 locations. My partner's never been great with money or time management, which is why, for the most part, I handled all the back office stuff, from ordering supplies to billing and payroll and so on. About 6 months ago, I began looking for a new position and found a new job. I didn't want to leave my partner in a hard spot, so I gave him a 90-day notice to find another partner or otherwise get his business affairs in orders before I resigned. He instead used this time to siphon off more funds for his side piece and allow his unruly children to ransack my office while I was away on a family vacation, and frequently not showing up to work or showing up late or super hungover, leaving me to do the extra work. So it was my time to get even. Finally, the time had come. As per our agreement, my partner was to buy out my 50% of the practice, which we agreed would occur on Monday of the next week. So basically, I take 50% of our liquid assets as a bank transfer. Monday, upon checking the bank account, I'd been locked out, and upon regaining access, found that $30,000 of my half had been moved to an account that I did not have access to. I'd had it at this point, and I spent the next few days plotting my revenge. Remember those back office things that I said I handled? Well, all those documents, processes, order forms, etc. They were on a shared office hard drive and absolutely vital to the practice, and way too much work for my partner to do himself in a short time. I just so happened to buy an identical model and take the original hard drive home with me. Upon plugging the hard drive in, I found a backup of his calendar, pictures, and emails between him and his mistress, which I forwarded to his wife. The following day, I ran a full-page ad in the local paper announcing a special holiday deal on our services, which we had planned together. Lastly, I hired some college students to write a slew of bad reviews on Google and Yelp to tank the overall ratings. The aftermath. The week after my departure, the clinic was insanely busy and quickly ran out of supplies. Since the order forms were gone, he had to turn away new and long-standing clients. My partner sued for the documents, and I countersued him for the $30,000 he owed me. We settled by exchanging the two. I've since heard that his wife divorced him, his mistress left him, and subsequently he filed for bankruptcy as the clinic never recovered. And his wife cleaned him out. I, on the other hand, really like my new job. I feel like one of the best strategies for revenge isn't to get the revenge yourself. It's to give all the tools for revenge to the spurned wife/husband and let them do all the heavy lifting, which is exactly what OP did here. Our next Reddit post is from Leading Road. In secondary school, I was tormented by a specific bully. For years, I was beaten up and publicly humiliated on a daily basis. The worst thing he did was beat me up so bad that I got a concussion and broken ribs when I was 14. He never faced consequences in school because his family was rich and he was pretty popular. For context, I live in a pretty small town in England, so everyone knows everyone, including the bully. He left the school when I was 17, and I didn't see him for about a year. Around this time, I got way more popular and started going to parties and making more friends. And annoyingly, he was friends with some of my friends, and his girlfriend was at my school. But I managed to avoid him mostly until I finished school. Unfortunately, I saw him a few months later. Me and my friends went to the pub to celebrate our exam results, and he was a complete butthole to me. He started insulting me and mocking me to my friends, saying, "Why do you hang out with OP?" Bringing up a bunch of stuff from years ago. And at one point, he put me in a headlock and told me that my friends only hung out with me out of pity. I wasn't going to take it, but I also wasn't going to get into a punch-up because I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of getting me angry. And right at that moment, I overheard the perfect thing. He was bragging to his friends about the house party he was having, talking about all the drugs he was going to take to the party, and said that he had everything in his car. It wasn't just a bit of weed either. If I remember correctly, he said that he had 13 bags of coke, about 30 pills of MDMA, and 7 or 8 grams of ketamine. And then I knew what I would do to get my revenge on this guy. As he was leaving, I followed him to his car and took a photo of his license plate. Then, after he was driving off, I walked off and called the police. I knew they needed something more than hearsay to stop the car, especially because I didn't want it to be tracked back to me, so I told the cops that I saw the bully snorting a white powder in the pub toilets. This was a complete fabrication. And then he got into the driver's side of the car, and I provided them with the license plate of the car and told them the direction they were heading in. I honestly didn't think they were going to stop him, or maybe they would ask him questions later and ruin his party. But the driving on drugs allegation, plus the fact that he had been arrested for minor possession before, which I didn't know at the time, was enough for the police to take it seriously and stop and search his car, where they found all the drugs that he was transporting to his party, and he got arrested for it. The consequences of his arrest meant that he lost out on his university place. His rich parents had enough of his behavior, so they kicked him out and cut him off from their funds. And the rumor I heard was that in return for a lower sentence, my bully ratted out his supplier, which resulted in him getting stabbed multiple times, and as a consequence of that, now has to wear a colostomy bag, and that, plus his criminal record, means he's currently unemployed. Oh geez. In the comments, Angry at World says, "Nice, gotta love it when bad things happen to shitty people." And Mr. Sigma says, "One could say that he was a total shitbag." And OP replies, "Inside and out." That was r/nuclear revenge, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.